The Divine Code reading for December 30th, pages 411 and 412. We are in the chapter Laws of a Pursuer and Self-Defense. Topic number 10. Likewise, that's in the if one who comes to kill you, precede him and kill him, was the last thing being spoken of. So likewise, one who is being pursued for the purpose of enslavement is surely permitted to save himself, even by taking the life of the pursuer. Rabbi Zalman Nehemiah Goldberg notes that it appears that this applies only if there is possibility that the enslavement will lead to death. So enslavement, they're talking about someone coming to kidnap a person in order to enslave the person. And is the person that's being attacked, being kidnapped, permitted to kill the pursuer in order to rescue himself from that? And there's different ideas about what enslavement being death. If it's obviously if he's being enslaved to work in a copper mine where he's liable to die after a short period of time, then the old style copper mines, then he will be permitted to kill the attacker who's trying to enslave him. Or if he's being shanghaied into a ship at a time when people that go on ships often die of malaria in that. So in those cases, it's clear. There's also an idea that slavery is like a death for the person. It's more of a philosophical idea, but it kills the person to be enslaved, and he should be allowed to rescue himself from that fate. I mean, he has a nice life somewhere, and he's going to turn it into slavery. He should be allowed to kill the person who's trying to enslave him, even if the slavery is going to be on a farm somewhere where he might live a normal length of life, but it's like killing the person. That might also be an argument that seems to be not clear in the Divine Code if that would be accepted. Also, the pursuer himself, if he is prepared to kill or seriously maim the person if he resists. So like in the case we're going to read later today about the robber who comes into a house, if he's prepared to kill in the case of his robbery, then it's permitted to kill the robber. There is a stand your ground argument within Torah. Likewise, the person that is being pursued for the purpose of rape. Someone's attacking a person for the purpose of rape. They're allowed to kill the person because there's a possibility that the raper is going to kill them. Therefore, they're allowed to kill. And even in the case where it's not so clear that the pursuit, if the person being attacked is allowed, even in the case where it's not clear, in the case of rape or they're having a limb serious injury, the victim is allowed to kill the pursuer in these situations, even if it's not clear if it would lead to death. If it's just going to lead to rape, still the victim is allowed to do whatever's necessary to prevent the attack. I would argue that the person being pursued for the purpose of enslavement might have the same option for himself. Now, a third party may not have that option. The third party, the person that wants to help prevent the attack, wants to save the person that is being enslaved, it could be argued that he would not have the right to kill the pursuer, just like in the case of rape, unless there's a possibility that the rapist is going to kill the victim. The third party that wants to save the person would not have permission to kill the rapist. So that might be the case in here with regard to the slaver, the person who wishes to enslave a person. The victim might have the permission. I'm just making this idea. The victim might have the permission to protect himself, but a third party possibly would not be allowed to kill the pursuer, unless it's clear that the enslavement is going to lead to death. That's just my own take on this topic. There's not much else explained in the Divine Code here. Topic number 11. A pursuer who is legally a minor has the same ruling and may be killed if that is the only way to save the victim. Rambam, The Laws of Murderers, 1:6. Likewise, a pursuer who is a deaf mute or mentally challenged may be killed, Minhag Chinuch Commandment 600, if that is the only way to save the victim. We have to be very careful to understand that we're not doing justice. We're not a person that is preventing the attack is not like a vigilante trying to pursue justice in the situation. He's simply trying to prevent the attack. It needs to be understood separately. What he's allowed to do is not permission to mete out justice. If that was the case, then a deaf mute or a minor who is not executed for the purpose, he's not liable. A minor would not be liable, or a deaf mute would not be liable, or a mentally challenged person would not be liable in a court of law. He might be institutionalized for health purposes, for safety purposes, but he would not be a justice liability would not go against these people. However, because we're not talking about justice in these scenarios of self-defense and the laws of the pursuer, we're talking about preservation of life and limb. And therefore, it is permitted to prevent the pursuer, even if the pursuer is not capable of being held responsible for it. We're just dealing with a real life scenario with what's happening in front of a person. You have to protect the victim. Topic number 12. If somebody attempts to break into a house secretively for the purpose of robbery, whether by day or night, it is permitted to kill him. Rambam, The Laws of Theft, 9:7. This is learned from Exodus 22:1 that states that there is no blood for him. That is, it is permitted to shed his blood since he is ready to kill in the process of his robbery. Therefore, he is also permitted to be killed if the pursuer is discovered. So if it's a case where we say, okay, this, in the case of robbing, someone breaking into a house, the assumption is anyone crazy enough to break into a house, the base assumption is that person is ready to kill someone that he comes across inside the house. Otherwise, if he wasn't ready to kill someone, he would not be breaking into their house. That's the basic assumption. That's the yeah. Therefore, in that case, it would be permitted to kill him because it's assumed that he has the possibility of killing himself. Therefore, if a defender of a house at the home or business, the owner or any other person kills the robber, he is not liable. If the person reasons that the robber is ready to commit murder, it is permitted for anyone to kill the robber in any possible way. Now, this is, of course, as necessary. We don't just kill a person right away. It's up into and including killing the pursuer. This applies whether the robber came through a tunnel or a door. In the language of Torah law, this is the classical expression based on the language of Exodus 22:1 for referring to a thief who is trying to steal by entering a building secretively by any means. So, but when it says through a tunnel, that's a halachic term referring to someone that is breaking through the roof would be considered tunneling. See Megid, Mishnah, laws of thieves, or laws of theft. Or a door would be a normal way of entering a building. Or is found on the roof or in the yard or any place where occupants of the building can usually be found. So a yard in ancient days would be like the courtyard. So it's within the building compound. You'd have a courtyard with the building kind of around it. And therefore that would be considered part of the living quarters, part of the normal. It's not like someone's standing in front of a front yard in a suburban front yard where he's not actually entered in, unless it's a walled, enclosed front yard, then perhaps. How can we permit a person to take the life of a robber if he only comes for money? This is because it is assumed that if a house owner stands up and tries to prevent the robbery, which is the nature of the world, the robber will kill him. So the normal way that we assume that the owner has an expectation that he will, and it's perfectly reasonable and normal for the owner to stand up to the robber. We don't expect the owner to run and hide and run through the back door and leave. The owner is natural for it's the proper way of the world is that the owner will stand up to the robber. And in that case, the robber is liable to kill him. Because how else would the robber expect to be able to rob unless he's prepared to kill? Therefore, if someone enters another person's house to rob him, it is as if the robber is pursuing the owner to kill him. For this reason, it is permitted within the Noahide Code to kill the robber. And indeed, it is a moral obligation. If there is risk to the life of the house owner, regardless of whether the robbery is being committed by a minor or an adult or a man or a woman, this applies only in a case where there is a concern that the minor or woman may be coming with the intent to kill if discovered, and that he or she has the capacity to do so. So we don't know for sure. We don't know for sure if the robber is going to comes with the preparation to kill if he's confronted. And when they say a minor, they're talking about a little kid. They're not talking about a teenager. They're talking about a little kid, or they're talking about a woman, or it could be someone that's not really capable of killing. In which case, could even be an adult man who just doesn't have the physical ability or the mental ability to kill. So the assumption is the robber has the intent to kill. If the owner of the house, or if a person in the house has the ability, and in real life scenarios these are difficult, but if the person has the ability to calculate that someone does not have the ability to kill, it's a 6-year-old kid who's behaving in an improper manner, but he's not. It would be obvious that he doesn't have the ability to kill or the intention to kill. So the assumption is towards the possibility, the necessity to kill the robber. But there's exceptions that hopefully the scenario would allow the owner of the house to be able to assess. Hopefully. However, if it is clear that the person inside who encounters the robber, that the robber will not kill him, it is forbidden to kill the robber. So if it's clear, it has to be clear that the person inside is not going to kill the person who stands up to him. And if one does so, he is considered a murderer. Therefore, if it is clear that the robber is only coming to steal money or belongings without readiness to kill in the process, and he is fearful and will submit if he is discovered in the act, like the behavior of a minor child who steals secretly but who isn't prepared to kill, it is forbidden to kill him. So if it's clear, then the owner or the occupant of the building can confront the person, and the person will back down. Then that's within the laws of the pursuer. It's always the whatever's necessary. So if it can be handled with a less than lethal way, that is how it has to be handled. And in a real life situation, if one is not sure, then it's permitted and maybe even necessary to kill the pursuer. But if it's possible, one should always try to do less than lethal intervention. Therefore, if a father comes secretly to rob his son, and it is clear that if the son tries to stop him, he will not kill his son, then he is not considered a pursuer. If the son kills him anyway, the son is considered a murderer, and he is liable to capital punishment for this. Because in general, a father will have mercy on his son. However, if he is known that the father is cruel and will not have mercy, then he is assumed to be a pursuer, and it is permitted to kill him if he is discovered robbing. Likewise, if a robber is breaking into a house of his known close friend, and it is clear that he has not come with readiness to kill, he is not considered a pursuer, and it is forbidden to kill him. Now, of course, in all these situations, it might be that this person, when he's brought to court, the pursuer, when he's brought to court after the situation, the pursuer is brought to court, he might be executed for the laws of theft. That's possible. But like I said before, this scenario of the pursuer is not the time to be figuring out justice. It's rather the time to deal with the immediate situation. Therefore, the close friend might wind up being executed anyway, but it doesn't have permission to kill his close friend, or person would not have permission to kill his father unless it's known that the close friend or the father is a violent person that may kill in the scenario. On the other hand, a son who robbed his father's home is assumed to be a pursuer, since in general, a son has less mercy for his father than his father has for him. Therefore, a father or another person is permitted to kill the son when he is caught breaking in. And I'm not certain if it's because the son has less mercy towards a father than a father has mercy towards a son, although that might be a case. But also another part is that the son, by breaking into his father's house, has broken a major commandment for the Jewish person, and also an obligatory an obligation on a non-Jew to honor his parents. So if he breaks into his father's house, it shows that he has no respect for his parents, and therefore for that person, for that child to break into his, or that son to break into his father's home, shows that he has no respect for his father, and therefore could be considered a pursuer. Whereas the father, he's not necessarily breaking a commandment or an obligation. He's still doing something wrong, and there's still a concern, why is he doing this? But he hasn't crossed the threshold that a son breaking into the father's home has crossed a certain threshold. Thank you.